Hello, friends, and welcome to yet another episode of Webisode. The purpose of these webisode is to learn from those who have done more in their field and to reduce our learning curve. If we go back into times, maybe 1,000 years or 2,000 or even 4,000 years, any person who has done anything great, legendary in their life, they always had a coach or mentor to guide them. Alexander had a coach, Marcus had a coach, Napoleon had a coach. You can go as back as you want. You will always see that every successful person has a great coach in the history. So it makes sense to learn from this coach and make your learning curve as small as possible. So today with us, Ruth Pearce. Thank you, Ruth, for coming again. She's a well-renowned author. She has written a book, and that book really fascinates me. Project Motivator: Unlock the Secrets of Strength-Based Project Management. Ruth has spoken to more than 25,000 people in over 45 countries about the topic of social intelligence for project leaders and loves to research strength use among project managers to better understand how they can grow in influence and success. And if I just can tell a small secret about Ruth, which you can find in her book, basically she became a project manager by an accident. She was pushed into that job because accidentally her boss left and she had to do that job. But after that, she have fell in love in that field, and she has been coaching project managers all around the world to perform effectively. And that is the main topic today: how coaching can help project managers perform effectively. So first of all, thank you, Ruth, for coming again.
You are most welcome. Thank you for having me back, Amir.
Thank you. So Ruth, let's go to the main topic. Basically, what is effectiveness? I want to know about this thing.
What is effectiveness? You really like to go for those
What
challenging
is it?
questions. Just remind your audience that it's early in the morning for me. And I haven't had
Okay.
any caffeine yet. So yeah, effectiveness, I think, is accomplishing what you set out to accomplish
Okay.
in the most beneficial way to other people. There's a certain amount of efficiency in there, so it's not doing extraneous things that take up time, take up energy, and it's also, when you're being effective, you're not just doing the best for other people, but you're also doing the best for yourself, so that you're not expending so much energy in what you're doing that it's kind of takes away from you. So there's a certain amount of self-care in there. So I think being effective is really getting it done in the best way possible, not just as quickly as possible.
Okay. Okay. So now coming to that coaching topic. How basically what is coaching? What is your coaching model and how coaching can help project managers? And most of the project managers are already experienced. You're also a PMP and you have managed a lot of project in a wide area. So how coaching can help?
So coaching is interesting. A lot of people, when they think of a coach, they think of something in sports, maybe, and they think of someone who tells you how to do things. They
Okay.
think of someone who decides what the plays are going to be in certain circumstances, depending on what the other team does and that kind of thing. That
Okay.
isn't really what we're talking about when we're talking about coaching. We're not talking about mentoring. We're not talking about training. What coaching
Okay.
is an opportunity for us to partner with our clients to help them think through and navigate through the choices and decisions and actions that they're taking
Okay.
with an understanding or an expectation that they know the most about their situation. So we're not
Okay.
going in there saying, oh, we're the experts in this. We believe that the person is the expert in their own life. And we're there to help them sort of make sense of what they're doing, make sense to be effective. Actually, you asked that question at the beginning. And my particular model is I love group coaching. I love to get
Okay.
small groups of people together and coach them
Okay.
together, because you've got the benefit then of the wisdom of other people in the group and the safety of being able to explore things. There's always confidentiality and then you've got that collaboration, that you're actually working with other people. And the coach is there to ask questions and stimulate thought and discussion and get people really thinking more deeply about what their decisions are and what they're doing.
Okay, so your basic model is group coaching. Instead of one-to-one coaching, you prefer to work in 4 to 5 group. Is it the number 4 to 5 people, or
It
is
can
it
be
more
anything
than this?
up to what we usually do is I usually run it with a group of coaches. And so we'll start off in
Okay,
a big session. There might be 20 people or even 40 people. And
okay,
we'll introduce a topic and we'll discuss the topic as a big group. And then we split out into smaller groups, so somewhere between 4 and 8 people. And our individual coaches then go with those
okay,
groups and go deeper into whatever the topic is and explore what those groups want to discuss. And then we come back into a big group and we kind of debrief and we share the ideas that came up from the different sessions so that everyone gets the benefit of the wisdom of the entire big group, but they're actually talking in small groups. So, yeah.
So basically, you are using in this model wisdom of crowd and seeing how basically you can brainstorm that wisdom of crowd in a perfect way, analyzing it in breaking down into the patterns and utilizing and giving it back to the people in their own words, right?
Yes.
That,
Yeah, and one of the things we
that
see, we did a
that's a
program earlier on this year before we started live. You were asking me how things are going with COVID. And when COVID hit here in the US in the first place, a lot of people obviously made,
Mhm.
as they did around the world, they made a transition to a new way of working or maybe not working at all. And
Sure.
we did group coaching for people who were going through that transition. Yesterday they were in the office.
Okay.
Today they're having to work from home. The kids are home because they can't go to school and that kind of stuff. And what we found was that bringing people together, they were from all different companies, all different types of project management, and yet they discovered that they weren't alone in their experiences. So I might have someone who's
Okay.
working for a government, someone who's working for pharmaceuticals, someone who's working for the
Okay.
financial industry. And yet when they got together, they would look at each other and say, well, I don't do your kind of project management. And yet they were experiencing the same life challenges of how do you have
Okay.
everybody
Okay.
doing school and work when you don't have enough computer access or you don't have internet or whatever it might be. And they found such shared experiences that it's also comforting to people that they're not alone, and it's a safe place to explore that away from people who are your usual contacts, or you may be making them anxious, like you can't always talk about all your fears to your family in case that increases their fear level. They could come to this group and no one else in the group knew them or had anything to do with them, and they could share and walk away a little lighter, because they had been able to express their feelings safely.
That is a really great model. You go to the group and you understand that the people are similar to you. You are not alone in the world facing all these challenges. And because most of the time when people go to depression, anxiety, this happens because we think back of the mind we are alone. But
Mhm.
when with the group coaching, okay, I am having the challenges. When the person is talking, okay, he is also having the same challenges. So we are basically belong to the same group. That's a really great model. So you have been coaching people lately a lot. So can you tell me what are the top challenges you see in the project management field?
Top challenges very often is around communication with other people, particularly being
Okay,
sensitive
okay.
to your communication style maybe being different to mine. As you know, I do a lot of
Mm-hmm,
work with
mm-hmm,
character strengths. So we have
mm-hmm,
situations in teams where we have maybe a lot of people who share a particular character strength, and so there's a sort of culture
mm-hmm,
in the team that leans towards that strength. So if you're someone who doesn't share that top strength, you can maybe feel a little left
mm-hmm,
out. So the concept of in groups and out groups. We have so many people are facing the transition of a different way, a way of working. That maybe they were used to coming together at least periodically in person, and now they're not. So that's an additional challenge because of COVID. The others are ongoing challenges. I think the core one is that communication with the individual team members and at that group level of making sure that everyone's understanding each other getting the information that they need to make the best decisions they can. It's the same challenges that project managers have always faced of getting the team on board and helping people be effective and efficient.
So team management and communication, and plus communication among the team management is one of the top challenge all over the world. So we got a follow-up question for this. Gulzar is asking basically how to enhance communication, how to ensure, basically, let me rephrase it, how to ensure that communication is effective among all the team members.
So I think one thing that it's really important to remember is that to be effective among all the team members doesn't mean that you do the same thing with everybody. So being sensitive to the different ways that people take in information. We've all been on those projects where we have a stakeholder who wants the big picture view. We're at this point, we're going to be at this point in 3 weeks. We're on track to deliver when we said we would. And that's kind of the level that they want to be at, maybe the key risks or the key issues at the moment. And then we have that stakeholder that wants to know task by task by task what's going on, who's working on it, what's happening, what happened when we did this test, what was the outcome. And we have everything in between in terms of detail. And that's just the level of detail that they want. How do they receive information best? Is it best to be talking like we are one-on-one? Is it best to be in a group where they're stimulated by the questions they hear from other people? Is it best to see something written or some visuals? Really thinking about what does that other person need? And as in so many cases, it comes down to asking them, what's most useful to you? What will be most effective for you? And then tailoring. People often don't want to do it because they feel as though there should be one way. I will deliver all this information and everyone will get whatever they need from this big thing. And we think that's going to save us time. And in actual fact, what happens is we spend the whole time going back and explaining what it was we were trying to say. Whereas if we have a few different ways of delivering information, it is more effective and it's more efficient. And we don't keep having to repeat the same conversations over and over again because we didn't hit the mark in terms of what someone else needed in order to understand what's going on.
So identifying how basically one process the information, what is the format that one needs, is it written, verbal, oral, video, whatever the format, and give that format, then ensure that the right information in the right format has been received and it has been understood, that we don't have to repeat ourselves. Well, so one of the most important thing, Ruth, that we need to be a effective project manager is to have an influence. Project manager does not have a control over so many stakeholders. So being a coach, when you coach, how you ensure that influence is developed or that influence is increased day by day by project manager?
That's a really interesting question. Thank you for that one. Yes, influence is so key, and we often feel that because we may not have direct authority over people that we're somehow on our back foot, and that it's going to be a struggle. Personally, I think we see that the best leaders are the ones who influence people and inspire people to take action. And to me, that model of leadership is the most effective one because you get people to commit themselves to doing what you want to get done. You're not just saying you must do this now. Most of us, some of us have been in the military, but we're not all in the military following orders and doing things when we're told to. And so I think influence actually is very powerful. And when we're working through coaching, what we do is we help people to understand what their form of influence is. So they may have a network of people who can help them get the message out. Someone else may have an influence because their personality is one where people take information from them very easily and they trust in them and believe what they have to say. Someone else's influence may be because they're curious and they ask lots of questions, and those questions give people the sense that they're being included and that they're being consulted. We can influence in many different ways, and what we're just like with the character strengths, that the secret of being a great leader is not these 5 strengths that will help you do that. It's taking your top strengths and using them really well. The secret with influence is to understand what's your secret source, what's the special influence you have, and then using that in positive ways to move the project forward and to influence the people around you. There isn't a recipe for influence. There's using what you have at your fingertips and using it well.
So basically, we have to move back again to the major thing, the main thing: know thyself. We have to know ourselves. We have to know our strength. We have to know how influence is required for this specific project and how good we are in which type of influence, and then we align the approach, we tailor that approach according to the requirement, and then we can improve it along the
Yeah.
way. So Ruth, is influence a skill or a talent?
Yes.
No,
It's both.
is
No,
that
I think it's both. So some people seem to naturally have an ability to get other people to do what they want them to do, right? So
okay,
they
okay,
have that natural connection with people to be able to get deeply into something very quickly, and that's a talent. Some people have
okay,
that talent.
okay,
At the
okay,
same time, I absolutely believe whatever your initial level of influence, you can develop a skill in it. And the skill is in, and this is something we practice a lot in coaching, the skill is in actually listening closely to other people. We spend a lot of time, I think we talked last time about how often when people are talking to us, we're waiting to answer what they have to say, solve their problem, be able to say, oh yeah, that's just like my story. I have the same story as you, autobiographical listening. We're not actually just immersed in what they're saying to us. And it turns out, in my experience, the greatest influencers are those who really listen to what the person on the other end of the call or the other side of the camera or in the group is saying, and be able to understand and weave in that person's thoughts and ideas into the big picture and then play it back to them. You mentioned earlier in coaching, that we play back people's own words and we play back things in slightly different words to make sure that we've understood what they've said. And I think it's the same thing with influence, is really hearing the other person and then being able to show you heard them and that you internalized what they said, and then pulling that thought or idea or concern into the overall picture and saying, well, this is how that fits your idea or your thought or your concern, how that fits in what we're doing. And then people trust in you, people believe in you, and they want to work alongside you. And that's what influence is getting them to get the desire to work with you to accomplish something.
so basically knowing other person, how he feels, listening to them, again coming back to the main topic, understanding what the person is really saying. Because when you listen to someone, basically you are giving them importance, and when you are giving importance, you automatically have some influence on them, and then you can influence them according to your requirement or according to the whatever the need of that topic is. So how can we become keen listener? If I can answer, by taking interest in the people, right, Ruth? By taking interest in the people, we can become keen
But taking
listener.
the keen listener, that's a really interesting phrase, though. That's that sort of really deep listening. And we talk in coaching about different levels of listening. They're sort of like level one, where we're letting the person share information with us. Level two is when we're really listening for what's going on underneath that, what else there is. And then level three is that keen listening, where we're listening and looking and watching and paying attention to all the cues we're getting. It's not just the words coming out of the person's mouth. And keen listening takes practice. So even for people who are naturally quite good at it. And to me, I think keen listening is almost you want a routine that you adopt. Almost like
Okay.
if you meditate, or if you have religious practices or spiritual practices. Very often people have practices that they follow regularly and frequently to maintain that sort of spiritual connection or whatever it might be. And I think you need the same thing. When you're going to keenly listen, remove distractions. You're not going to keenly listen to someone if you're constantly hearing your phone beep, or you're seeing email notifications pop up. Or so decide that your focus, really think about who this person is, what's important to them before you encounter them, and then put other things away for the short period of time that you're listening to them. And if you do that, you generally don't have to listen to them for so long, because you're focused and attentive and you hear what they have to say, and then you can move on. When we're only half listening, we very often say back the wrong thing and the person says, that's actually not what I said or not what I meant. Or we have to ask them to repeat something because we realize we drifted off in the middle. So to me, active listening is very similar to kind of a meditative skill of being here in this moment with that person and pushing other things aside. And knowing when we can't, knowing when we're so distracted that this isn't the moment. Just because someone wants to talk to you about something doesn't mean this is the best moment to do that. And being honest and saying, I understand that you want to talk to me. I understand that we need to explore this topic. Now is not a good time. Can we speak at 4 so that you can set yourself up to listen as well as possible? You don't have to be reacting all the time to other people pulling on you and saying, I need to talk to you now.
I really love the way you explained it. So, if I can just put it, you have placed listening or being a keen listener equivalent to mindfulness. You are so mindful what the person is saying. You have slowed down, you have removed the distraction. And I would even rate it. It is one of the number one skill in the project manager in the upcoming decade, as we discussed last time. Because with the so many distractions, anyone can do and learn all the softwares. But being able to be an effective communicator and in effective communicator being a listener, being mindful what is being said and knowing when to say no, because as you mentioned, you have to say some no, that I cannot listen to you right now. You don't have to listen to people all the time. Sometimes being a project manager, you have to see effectiveness, how you can be more effective. Right now you are some doing important task, whatever the person has to say, if it is more important than you, then you can see. But if you are distracted, request them, say them politely no, and then move on, and maybe come back later and ask him what you want to say. Now I'm free, you can talk about that. So that's a great thing to know. One important thing, being whenever I meet any project manager, being a project management consultant, I always face this thing. There is always cognitive biases, some culture biases, so many biases, you know this thing. So when you are coaching a group, how you ensure that you can basically remove those biases, minimize those biases, or use those biases in the benefit to the project's managers so that they can perform effectively?
So that is it's a favorite question and topic of mine. I'm doing a lot of work with biases. In fact,
Okay.
last week I did a presentation to an organization over here where we explored 3 biases. We explored confirmation bias, groupthink, and planning fallacy. And if I may, I'll give you an example of how we explored planning fallacy. So I asked everyone in the group, if your sponsor comes to you and says, I want you to do a presentation on your project. The presentation is to last an hour. How long will it take you to prepare that presentation? That was the question. No more information than that. And people voted on different options. So an hour to prepare an hour's presentation, 2 to 4 hours, 4 to 8 hours. And the final option was, I don't know. And then the next question was, and people chose, and predominantly they chose 2 to 4 hours. A couple of people said 1 hour, and a couple of people said 8 hours, and 2 people said, I don't know. The next question was, your sponsor says, yeah, that's too long, but I can tell you that the promotion you've been going for will be confirmed if you can do that presentation in half the time. So instead of taking 2 to 4 hours to prepare, you can have it ready in an hour to 2. How many of you would take that challenge and say, yes, I'll do it? And almost everybody said, yes, I would do that. I would say yes for that promotion. I would do that. And I said, so what changed? First of all, what changed? Because you made your assessment based on what the task was you've been asked to do. Why suddenly can you do it in half the time? And everybody went, oh, yeah, I haven't thought about that. And then I said, and how do you know how long it will take you? I didn't tell you who your audience was. Are you selling this to a customer? I mean, personally, selling is something I'm not good at. So I could prepare for 20 hours and that hour's presentation wouldn't be very effective. A status update? Is it an exchange of ideas with team members? What is that hour's presentation? Without knowing that, you can't know how long it's going to take. And then everybody did this again. Because we have these assumptions, we make assumptions. So in the coaching, what we really focus on is challenging those assumptions and asking people, where does that come from? Where does that belief come from? What evidence do you have that that's true? And getting them to just think about how many things do they do in that automatic way where they haven't actually necessarily taken a step back and said, do I have all the information I need? You can even ask that in coaching. What information do you need to answer that question? And that can make people realize, oh, you know what? I actually don't have anywhere close to enough information. And yet I've already made a commitment that I'm going to do it in 2 hours. So challenging people to think about, how do they get to that answer? And do they really have everything they need in order to get to a confirmed and final and reliable answer to the question?
Thank you for that example. That really, for a minute, I was also thinking in the back of my mind, okay, how much time I will take. And when you put that question, you can get a promotion. The tables have been turned. Now you have to do it. Otherwise, you are not going to get the promotion for which you are working. So that's a great way to put it in this scenario,
Well, and
that
the
you can
interesting thing,
always challenge your
the
boss.
interesting thing is, in the statement, it said, if you manage to do the presentation in half the time, prepare the presentation in half the time, your promotion will be confirmed. The storyline wasn't actually, you won't get the promotion. You know, what boss wants someone who just goes, yes, 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 I can do it in half the time, and then maybe the quality isn't so good. If you can go back to the person who's asking you to do that and say, here are the reasons why it is still going to take me 4 hours to get ready. I want to be able to do this, or I need more information. That person, you can build trust in them that there's reasoning behind your estimates. There's reasons why you say it will take as long as it will, and that you're not just plucking a number from the air. Whereas if you just say, yeah, sure, I can do it in half the time, people start to believe that you pad. That's why people believe that project managers pad numbers, right? They start to believe that your numbers are not reliable. They start to believe that you're making life cushy for yourself. They make all sorts of assumptions about you when you don't give them consistent answers to the questions they ask.
That is so true. That is so true. And do share us a link of that if it is possible, where you did that session. If it is available, we can
Yes, I can
watch
do that.
that.
I mean,
That
I
would
will
be
send
great.
you. I'll send you this, the slides and the results of the answers, because it's all anonymous. We did it
Okay.
in Menti.com,
Okay.
so it's all
Okay.
word clouds
Thank you.
and graphs and things. So yeah.
Now, during the coaching, when you're trying to increase the effectiveness of project managers, you see a lot of habits, because we are what we repeatedly do, as Aristotle said, and habit is simply the most important thing, that we have to see how we can change it. And in coaching, I understand that if you can change the habit, it can be small habit, big habit, or you can may have a stack of habits. How you work on habits in coaching?
Another really fascinating question. So when I'm coaching people, I believe that a series of small incremental changes is more sustainable, more manageable, and more realistic than to say, I have this big change I want to make. You know, to go from 0 to 60. I mean, there are exceptions. There are times when people really want to make a concerted effort to change an embedded habit in a bigger way. Generally, though, it's the process of incrementally changing. So I'm thinking, for example, I got into a habit of getting up later. During COVID, I didn't have so many early calls, and so there was no particular reason why I had to be up at 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever it might be. And gradually I was getting up later and later and later, and I noticed that I was actually more and more tired because I wasn't being methodical about my time. Now, to go from, by the time I noticed I was getting up at 9:30, to say I'm going to go back to getting up at 8 o'clock, that was a lot. An hour and a half change, that was a lot. But what I did was I started going to bed 5 minutes earlier and getting up 5 minutes earlier. And I would do a week at a time until I got back to, I'm in bed by 11:30 and I'm up by 8 o'clock. And so, and that felt more sustainable because it wasn't such a big push. So when we're in coaching, we ask people what's slightly beyond what you can easily manage. You know, so you might say, I can easily wake up a few minutes earlier, I just won't get up. Okay, what's slightly more than that? And you get them to practice that for a while. And then you mentioned habit stacking. So the idea of tying one habit to another one. So I clean my teeth every morning. So what's something I can do right before that? I do 5 push-ups right before I clean my teeth. And doing the one becomes a cue for doing the other. All these sort of techniques we can use to help people change their habits just a little bit at a time. And in an amazingly short period of time, you can see that people have turned things very differently from where they started. So I think that was a bit of a sort of long-winded answer. I love all the work of things like BJ Fogg, Tiny Habits, or James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits.
Atomic
All of
habit.
them focus on this idea of making lots of incremental changes rather than changing a habit, a great big habit all at once.
So basically, Kaizen methodologies. And Ruth, a very interesting thing about this, I gave a TED talk 2 years back on the same topic. Basically, how I reduced 35 35 kg, that is 70 pound of my weight. I was too heavy. I did the same approach of habits. I tried it so many times. Then I learned from my coach. Basically, tried this approach. So that really worked and that really resonates with me. But I'm going to try it waking up early, because with this COVID situation still going on, I am having that issue. I'm getting more and more late. So I'm going to put your idea into practice. Okay, we are
Well,
running out
I
of
will say,
time.
I know we're running out of time, but I will say one other thing as well. Think about the language you use. So you were talking about losing weight. I want to lose weight. That very language, even in, not in English, I'm speaking English, but in any
Yeah.
language you speak, that language is about giving something up.
Okay.
I'm losing something. It's what we're
Okay.
moving towards. What will we be? People say, I imagine there won't be any noise. Well, what do you imagine you'll hear? I'll hear the silence. Maybe I'll hear birds in the distance. It's what
Okay.
will you
Okay.
do rather than what will you give up doing. It's what will you accomplish rather than what are you losing. So I try not to think about losing weight. I think about fitting into a jacket that used to fit me last year and that I used to feel really good in. It isn't about giving up that weight. It's about gaining something else.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for adding transformational vocabulary. And friends, this is the power of coaching. I know a thing, but she changed my vocabulary to something that my mind will accept. Because as she said, when I'll think about losing something, my mind who works on pain or gain will try to stop me. No, 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 no. We don't want to lose it. Thank you, Ruth. And I will be more careful in future. So, Ruth, last question. What impact you want to leave in the world?
um, I I want to. My passion is to help people find the best version of them. And I think that best version is different every day. I like to help people to be better today than they were yesterday. And it's such a thrill for me when I see someone get to something they want to do, achieve something they want to achieve. I mean, it's not so much about achievement. That may be achieving greater peace or feeling more connected with the world. It isn't the sort of typical American thing of I'm going to achieve $1 million or something like that. So what I want to, the impact I want to leave in the world is to help people believe that they can be better every day than they were the day before.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. And where my audience can find you, because I received a message you are on Facebook. I know that. So where they can find you?
So I am on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Ruth Pearce, Project Motivator. Also, you can go to my website. There's lots of ways. You'll see there's ways of contacting me through my website, through email or text or all sorts of things. And my website is www.projectmotivator, or one word, projectmotivator.com. And I look forward to
Okay, I'll
connecting
share.
with anyone who
Yeah,
was listening
I'll
today.
I'll I'll share with it with everyone so that they can learn from it. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for
Okay,
having me.
now if you learn the ideas that we have discussed in these two sessions, in the previous session and in today's session, especially the one she just gave in last 2 minutes, the idea of transformational vocabulary, how you can learn and implement, just change a few words in your language, how you can develop these tiny habits, how you can challenge your cognitive biases, how you can be more open, how you can become a better influencer by knowing what is the approaches that you know, and how you can become an excellent communicator by ensuring which stakeholder need which format. You can become an effective project manager. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you a lot for joining us again, and see you next time.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.